The NFL has been clueless for 50 years when it comes to evaluating quarterback. Clueless. They have no idea what they're doing in terms of evaluating quarterback. That's proof.
How many
times? They say we know exactly what we're talking about with quarterback. They don't.
Right there. That's why Mel Kiper Jr. should be off ESPN. He came off as deranged, like it was personal. An insult to him that Shador Sanders didn't get chosen until the 5th round.
I owe you guys a huge apology. I'm incredibly late to this story. There's been so much that we've needed to cover in regards to the NFL, but a part of me felt incomplete without making this video because this was truly one of the funniest things I've seen in quite some time. The 2025 NFL draft is officially in the past, and we witnessed one of the craziest draft slides in NFL history when projected top 10 pick Shador Sanders fell all the way to the 5th round. I've made way too many videos on this situation, but there's one man who played a huge role in the drama that I have not talked about since the NFL draft, and that's ESPN NFL draft expert Mel Kiper. After Shador Sanders was finally selected in the 5th round, we witnessed what might end up being the downfall of Mel Kiper's career, and it's causing a ton of sparks among NFL fans. So before we get to the video, just want to give a quick shout out to my brand new baseball channel, Uni Diamond Talk. We've been really pushing content over there. If you're a baseball fan, I highly recommend you check it out. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? For over 40 years, Mel Kiper has been the lead draft analyst for ESPN, and while he's had a successful NFL career, it hasn't come without its low moments, especially when it comes to the quarterback position. As he said in the intro clip, when it comes to evaluating the quarterback position, he has had some very questionable takes in the last 40 years. And yes, hindsight is 2020, but the way he's defended these takes makes them look completely laughable at this point. And this past year was no different. Not only was he an advocate of Shador Sanders, causing him to absolutely lose his mind, crash out and say that NFL GMs, something that he is not, can't evaluate quarterbacks correctly, but he literally had Shador as a top 5 player in the class and the number 1 quarterback in the class. He had Sanders ranked 1 spot ahead of Miami quarterback Cam Ward, who was the consensus 1st overall pick to the Tennessee Titans. And he was very adamant about this throughout the draft process. I mean, just listen to how much he talked about Shador on draft day.
What is the one you are most looking forward to here? Sanders. He's really the talk of the draft. He's my number 1 quarterback. He was outstanding for 2 years at Colorado without getting a lot of help.
But he can escape. He can do things that Shador can't do. But if Shador gets an offensive line in front of him, the exact same thing I said about Tom Brady when he came out. There's a young quarterback coming in, but I'm taking Shador Sanders. I prefer him in New Orleans. I don't know what the Saints were thinking there. That if I'm Pittsburgh, Shador Sanders, the pass on him at this stage at pick 21.
Yeah, we always act like we're in the 6th round of the draft right now. We're still where Lamar Jackson wasn't taken. And last time I checked, Baltimore Ravens out of South Carolina tight ends, and then they traded back into 32 to take Lamar Jackson. We're ready to pack it up at the end of day 1 and get ready for day 2, right? There's Lamar Jackson.
Mel, your reaction?
Well, surprised he went ahead of Shador, not shocked.
Yeah, you heard that right. On night 1, Mel Kiper managed to compare Shador Sanders to the only 2 unanimous MVPs in NFL history, Lamar Jackson and Tom Brady. Shador already wasn't an insanely special talent, so comparing him to the greatest quarterback of all time and arguably the best quarterback in today's game is absolutely insane, especially considering the slide he'd go on following that. Mel Kiper made the NFL draft about Shador Sanders, and it was completely unacceptable. 143 kids heard their name called before Shador did, and Mel Kiper let his pride and his own ego take over the NFL draft, completely overlooking those 143 players simply because he was wrong about a prospect. Then, once he finally did get selected, Kiper proceeded to let the entire world know how disgusted he was with the NFL, all because he was wrong. I genuinely cannot stress that enough. Mel Kiper made a fool of himself on national television in an attempt to make the people who signed his paychecks look stupid, all because he was wrong. Funny enough, a lawsuit has broken out where an anonymous Colorado fan who named himself John Doe is suing the NFL for $100 million due to the emotional distress that Shador falling to the 5th round caused him. And at the top of this document, it says that Mr. Doe demands a retraction of the statements made against Sanders, along with any apology for any harm caused to his reputation. Now, try and tell me that John Doe isn't Mel Kiper. This is exactly something that he would do. He made a fool of himself, it was completely embarrassing, and it may have just cost him his job. Since this incident happened, fans have been clamoring for ESPN and the NFL to fire Mel Kiper and move on from the 40-year history he's given the NFL draft. On one hand, I do have nostalgia with Mel Kiper. I mean, it's really fun watching him crash out and how passionate he is in regards to these NFL prospects. It's also hilarious when you can tell he's alienating the people that are hosting the NFL draft with him.
Nobody's arguing that. That can happen. The NFL has been clueless. All that, no idea what they're doing in terms of evaluating quarterback. That's proof. Nobody's better than Thompson there. No, that's correct, right? I mean, again, nobody's criticizing what happened. We're saying he has to deal with the reality of the result.
I mean, I personally watched the draft on NFL Network, and I also flipped between that and the Pat McAfee show. And to be honest, they were both better products in every single way than what I'm used to with ESPN. And the absence of Mel Kiper is a large reason why. Daniel Jeremiah does the same thing that Kiper does, but he does it so much better. He puts his biases aside, provides insight on the prospects like no other, and overall provides much better analysis. Mel Kiper may be entertaining, but he's entertaining for all of the wrong reasons. I'd say that ESPN should be on top of this situation after the crash out he had on day 3, but unfortunately I don't think that's gonna happen because this isn't even close to the first time this has happened, and funny enough, Kiper got clowned for it back in 1994. After the Indianapolis Colts passed on Trent Dilfer twice in the first 6 picks of the draft, Mel Kiper had this to say to them.
But to pass up a Trent Dilfer when all you have is Jim Harbaugh, give me a break. That's why the Colts are picking second every year in the draft, not battling for the Super Bowl like other clubs in the National Football League.
He once again overrated a quarterback prospect, and instead of admitting that he was wrong, he decided to clown an NFL franchise, which is hilarious considering that with the 2nd pick in the NFL draft, the Colts selected San Diego State running back Marshall Faulk, the 1994 Offensive Rookie of the Year and future NFL MVP. Meanwhile, Trent Dilfer would have an average career as a backup, he'd win a Super Bowl with the Ravens in 2001, but he was carried by a top 3 defense of all time. Mel Kiper was wrong, the NFL GMs know best, and after this outburst at Indianapolis, the Colts GM at the time, Bill Tobin, would clap back at him, famously saying this.
Who in the hell is Mel Kiper in a way? I mean, here's a guy that criticizes everybody, whoever they take. He's got the answers to who you should take and who you shouldn't take. In my knowledge of him, he's never ever put on a jockstrap. He's never been a coach. He's never been a scout. He's never been an administrator. And all of a sudden, he's an expert. He's in our papers 2 days ago telling us who we have to take. We don't have to take anybody that Mel Kiper says we have to take. Mel Kiper has no more credentials to do what he's doing than my neighbor, and my neighbor's a postman, and he doesn't even have season tickets to the NFL.
Bill Tobin made some really good points in this interview. Kiper had never played football, yet he still feels like he knows more than the people who are in charge of everything football related. And if a team doesn't take who Mel thinks they should, they're wrong according to Mel. And it's actually insane when you think about it like that. Those clips are from over 30 years ago, and the fact that they're more relevant now than ever is a major problem. I mean, Kiper has done this a million times since 1994. Let me show you a few examples. In 2010, Mel Kiper was so high on Notre Dame quarterback Jimmy Clausen that he said, and I quote, "If Jimmy Clausen is not a successful quarterback in the NFL, I'm done. That's it. I'm out." Then he proceeded to say he wanted an 8-year time frame for Clausen to prove himself. First of all, 8 years is such a long time. You'd be able to tell if Clausen is good by the end of his rookie contract. Second of all, it's been 15 years and Mel Kiper is still around. He made a claim, he made a promise, and he didn't live up to it once he ended up being wrong, which is a common trend with Mel. In 2014, Kiper claimed that Texas A&M's standout quarterback Johnny Manziel would be the consensus 1st overall pick and the best quarterback in the class. Manziel would end up falling all the way to the 22nd overall pick and wasn't even the first quarterback off the board, with UCF quarterback Blake Bortles going to the Jacksonville Jaguars at pick number 3, a guy who would end up having a much better career than Johnny Football, by the way, which isn't really saying much. The next one might be the worst of all. In 2017, Mel Kiper's list of his top 5 quarterbacks in the class was something else to say the least. I mean, he had North Carolina's Mitchell Trubisky at the top, which makes sense. He was hyped up pre-draft and ended up going number 2 to the Chicago Bears. The number 2 spot is where it starts to get iffy though. He had Notre Dame's Deshaun Kaiser as his 2nd best QB ahead of Deshaun Deshaun Watson, who was fresh off of a legendary career at Clemson. Kizer would only play 2 seasons as a pro, including an 0-15 first season as a Brown, where he threw a league-leaguing 22 interceptions, which was 6 more than second place. Then, one spot after Watson, Kiper had Washington State's Luke Falk, who started 2 games as a pro after being drafted in the 6th round. And guess who Mel had him ahead of? Mel Kiper had him 1 spot above Patrick freaking Mahomes. For someone who has said on national TV multiple times that NFL GMs don't know what they're doing when it comes to quarterbacks, Mel Kiper has been wrong so many times. I mean, the guy thought that Chicago could get a top 10 pick for Justin Fields in 2024. It's clear that this guy just doesn't know what he's talking about.
And if you trade Justin Fields to Atlanta, you could get the 8th pick overall.
Now, there's still a chance that Mel Kiper is right for one. I made multiple videos on the Shador Sanders slide when it was happening, and I had talked about what Shador Sanders could become if he plays with a chip on his shoulder, and accept that there are no guarantees in the National Football League. And I truly do believe that can happen. Shador was drafted into a very good situation for him, because Cleveland realistically has 4 guys who could start week 1. They went out and signed Joe Flacco to be that veteran presence that they so desperately need. They traded for Kenny Pickett before the draft to be a potential high upside guy. And then they drafted 2 quarterbacks. They took Dylan Gabriel first to be their safety guy since he's accurate and coachable. And then they drafted Shador Sanders because, yes, Shador Sanders is a good quarterback and can make a high impact in the NFL. There's just some concerns about his character.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the coach, don't give me. You should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over. It should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
I mean, this was the main reason Shador Sanders slid. He reportedly walked into interviews with headphones on, blasting music. Apparently, he took a FaceTime call in the middle of an interview, and both he and his father have done nothing but boast about how good he is, giving both of them a terrible professional look. But despite that, Shador is a good quarterback, and if he shows out, Mel Kiper might look like a genius. Still, despite that, losing your mind on national TV like that is completely unacceptable in his position, and I do think that ESPN should move on from him. Whether he's right or wrong, his ego gets in the way far too much, and it's ruining the draft product that ESPN has spent so much time and effort perfecting. If he's right, then that's a big if. He can talk about how right he was from the sidelines. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, our highest viewed video on this YouTube channel of all time is a video where I cover Mel Kiper's worst draft takes ever. I'm gonna leave a link to that in the end screen. I think it's a cool video for you guys to watch. My content's kind of changed ever since I made that video, and if you happen to be in the mood for some baseball, I'll leave our latest upload on Uni Diamond Talk in the end screen as well. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.